Picture this, a room buzzing with ambition, laughter, and empowerment. You are at the helm of a networking event that's not just a gathering, it's a launch pad for your professional growth. In this episode, we have a very special guest, Laura Keller, with the Laura Keller Real Estate Team in Ottawa, Canada, who will share the secrets of creating an event that sparks connections, fuels collaborations, and propels careers forward. We will be diving into the dynamic world of networking with a twist, because it's not just about making connections, it's about launching a networking event that will elevate your career to new heights. Hello, and welcome back to The Real Estate Woman, a podcast for women in the real estate industry who are passionate about expanding their careers through business development and leadership. I'm Debbie LaRiviere, owner of Monterre Coaching, a company that ascends top talent to new heights in the real estate industry, and that's exactly what I want for you. Today in the studio, I have a very special guest, Laura Keller, with RE/MAX Affiliates in Ottawa, Canada. We are going to be discussing the power of networking and how it can help to launch your career. We look forward to speaking with you in a minute. Laura, thank you so much for joining us on the Real Estate Woman podcast. We are excited to have you today sharing your experience in launching your women's networking group for growing the power of women in real estate and helping them lead the charge in the industry. So I'm going to jump right in and ask the first question. So what was it that prompted you to start the Women in Real Estate in Ottawa professional networking group?
So we do have several networking groups, Facebook groups in our area already, but it seemed like there was a need for women to get together and discuss things that are really unique to our experience as professionals, as realtors, no matter where we are in our business, our lives, whether we're married or single and parents or not, like we all have the same trajectory in this industry, and it just seemed like there was a desire within the groups that we're already in for something extra.
Yeah. I love that you took it personal. So it was like you mentioned the Facebook group, it's more in-person type of networking. So how did you select how you were going to start the organization with invites, who to invite, where to host it, that sort of thing?
I'm not really an overthinker, so I just did it. I know that so many people have that like analysis paralysis, and you think too much about it and nothing ever gets done. So, truthfully, I thought about this about a year ago. I reached out to a couple of other women who also suggested that would be something that they would be interested in either helping to lead or joining or whatever. And so it really was just very organic. I went on to Canva. I created a Facebook event cover picture, which took me like 5 minutes, created the Facebook event. I figured I would have some sort of agenda so that people knew that there was something more than, the usual gab that we get at women's events. And then I posted it on the Facebook groups that I'm part of. I invited some people specifically who I'm close to, and then it just sort of grew from there.
So about how many people did you have attend your first event?
I think we had like 50 or something. It was quite a large group. Over 100 people thought they might want to attend. So I was really happy that we got about half of that number.
That's great. Now, you mentioned creating agenda, and I love that because so often we join these book clubs known as wine groups, and like you said, gabbing about whatever topic comes first to mind. There's not a lot of intentionality around actually talking about the quote book. So tell me a little bit about the agenda and maybe some items that you guys covered in your first meeting there that helped you stay on track and helped grow other women in the real estate industry.
Well, I had a loose agenda, but I wanted it to be whatever it turned into, because it's not about me, it's about us as a group. So um, the location that we had it was at one of the brokerages in our area owns a large building. They have a little cafe bar type thing. So there were some tables, like bar height tables set up. And it started at 2 o'clock. People were arriving early, which never happens at networking events, especially in real estate.
Or
And
real
I'm sure
estate.
I know I was setting up my charcuterie boards and people are walking in. I'm like, oh my gosh, what already? I showed up late. Um, so it was the first, I would say probably 45 minutes to an hour was just socializing. People were there on time. Um, they hugged people that they haven't seen in a long time or have never met. So many of us, especially in a large city, we don't often see each other in person because we're so spread out. Um, so even though we've done deals together, we may not have ever met before. So there was a lot of that. The bartender created a custom cocktail for us called the Offer,
That's great.
which was delicious. Much of us indulged in a couple of those, but it was very social to begin with, and then it took me a while to sort of bring everyone down to get to the business of it. But realistically, my main purpose of this particular event, the inaugural event, was to find out what people wanted to learn, what they wanted to share, and why they wanted to participate. And um, for me, I also wanted to share the power of networking. I've been in the business, 14 years at this point. I've grown a network, not just locally, but nationally and internationally. And that seems to get lost on some people, that's a really important part of our business. So I wanted to touch on that. I wanted to find out what other people wanted to learn. So I brought, one of those easel papers and took notes with a Sharpie and said, like, tell me what you want to learn here. I had an ask me anything because I'm fairly well known in the area. I wanted people to feel free to ask what they wanted to ask. And then it was just more socializing. So I learned a lot from what people were interested in.
That's great. Well, and I love the ask me anything, because so often there are agents in the industry that will say, oh, those are my real estate secrets. Well, the reality is there are no secrets in real estate. The true secret is execution, right? Do you actually go and take action on that thing that you learned from that top agent? And that's where typically the gaps show up. And I think it's a great space for you guys to talk about experiences with some of these strategies that you're implementing and that sort of thing to help grow those that will go execute on the ideas and help them take their businesses to the next level. The other side with the socializing that I love is so often, like you said, we don't see the face with the name, and we'll do one deal or multiple deals with this particular agent and have never met them in person. And I think there's a huge aspect of real estate where when you're submitting an offer, and maybe even just an offer that might not be the best offer, to have that relationship with that agent to then go in and negotiate at a little different level than here's my offer. It's more of a, hey, we know Laura, she's going to get the deal done. Let's see if we can't work with this offer. So I think
as we're coming into this year and next year, 2024, 2025, we know it's going to be banging. Like the rates are starting to come down. The demand, we have so much pent up demand. And that's not just here. I know from talking to my colleagues all over North America that it's everywhere. And if we're in a multiple offer situation again, and an offer comes from someone I know versus a stranger or someone from a different city, which we're getting a lot of these days, like that adds a lot of weight. And you can say, I know this person, I know their buyer is going to come through. They're not going to flake out at the last minute. They're not going to bring up issues at inspection that are not issues at all. That they're going to have their financing in place because I know that agent doesn't work with flaky buyers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what a great place to sit in representing your sellers too. I love that. So you mentioned some of the whiteboarding or strategizing on topics that are of interest for women in real estate today. What are some of those topics that you heard that you are looking to tackle here in the upcoming meetings?
So socializing was the number one,
Yes.
which I understand after the few years that we've had recently, where we haven't had those connections and people aren't going to the office anymore. But there was a wide range. The experience of the agents varied from people who don't even have their license yet, who are in the process of getting it, to people who have been in it for decades. And so it was really interesting to hear feedback from all different walks of life. Safety was one of them. So one of the women who showed up is a third degree black belt. Offered to give us a lesson. Another was a police officer who is actually creating a program for her teenage daughter who plays hockey around, what happens at a rink when certain situations arise and what should you do, and really creating that around the real estate industry as well, and in what to do if you get a phone call like this or a text message or someone shows up at an open house, those types of things. So that was one thing that came up. Financial stability was another one, how to be financially independent, and grow your wealth. There were some questions around different types of marketing and client care and CRMs and that sort of thing. But really, I think over time, it'll sort of grow into something of its own. And one of the things that I suggested, because I'm a really busy agent, and I love starting things and I love finishing things, but the middle part isn't my favorite
The
thing to
messy
do.
middle.
The messy middle, that's not where I like to live. But there were so many people who had a wealth of knowledge in specific topics. So what we decided to do was that we're just going to kind of shuffle it around. So even though I started this thing, I'm not in charge. I'm not the leader. I'm more the facilitator, and everybody has something to offer. And we're just going to pass the torch. And I think that was the most beautiful part of it all.
I love that, because then you get other people's perspectives involved, as well as different views on different topics. And I think it's amazing that you have people in that group that are already raising their hand to show up, to participate, to share what they know or share from their background to help every woman in that room excel in real estate. And what's interesting, some of those topics are topics you can find here on the Real Estate Woman podcast, as well as continuing to dive into, those key elements of successful women in business. And I think you definitely emulate that success and have a wealth of information to share. So when you look towards the next meeting, what does that look like? How are you preparing?
I've created a Facebook group. I didn't think I was going to, because there are so many out there already. I don't know how many you're a part of, but I'm like, I've got to be part of 50 different Facebook groups. But that's what the people wanted. So I created this Facebook group. I created a poll based on the notes that I took at that first meeting, to see what people wanted the next topic to be. And then once we figure out what that next topic, someone else can take the charge and set up their own thing. And because our city, even though we're only 1 million people, it's very spread out geographically. So trying different locations and different venues to make sure it's accessible for everybody.
I love that. So your goal then would be to expand the reach or continue to grow the network within the networking group.
It should grow fairly rapidly, I think, and depending on the location and the topic, it'll attract different types of people. So I think that'll be the most interesting part as we sort of watch this grow.
Yeah. Well, and the key value you're offering there is one, the socialization, and I hope an additional drink called, I don't know, the closing or something.
Closer.
But then also continuing to add topics in with different perspectives. So if you could leave us with one additional piece of guidance as other women out there look to launch networking opportunities, what would that be?
Um, I think you just have to figure out what you and your colleagues are interested in, and it might vary geographically, or there might already be a a women's group set up in your city that you can sort of branch off of or whatever, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is not complicated. I went to the grocery store an hour before and got some, meats and cheeses, and I had the whiteboard paper. Like, it was very, very basic. I spent $100. It was not an expensive thing to do. Um, I would just say do it. Like, there's nothing holding you back. There's a venue somewhere that you can get into, even if it's just your office space or a library boardroom or whatever. There are spaces out there. Um, and see what happens organically. That's the best part. And because so many of us are busy and we're trying to balance our lives, ask for help. There's the number of messages I got once I created the event on Facebook offering help. Um, I think there were like 15 within a day, people offering to help me out with the organization or the setup or whatever, or the next one. So it's a desire that people have, and just do it.
Absolutely. Well, and one statistic we've talked about on our podcast in the past is that 66% of the real estate industry is made up of women. And so having that outlet, that network, that educational platform, the ability to see other opportunities within the industry and the space outside of just selling one more house, I think is very intriguing to many women out there who just don't know what to do next. And like you said, it's no more than a Facebook invite, a charcuterie board, a drink and a space, and create your own and go with a plan in mind, a general what do people want to know more about, and you can't lose, right? You just keep growing.
And that's one of the things I brought up too, is that we are the majority in this industry, but the majority of the top producers are men. The team leaders are overarchingly men, but that's just outward facing. There are so many women who are incredibly successful, but nobody knows it. Because that's just most of our personality is just that's just not what we do. We don't stand with our big poses in front of big houses or our fancy cars.
Yeah.
Um, there is a way to be successful and humble and balance your lives. We can do it all, and we should, because the way we set it up is the way we're going to lead our industry. And if we don't speak up, and it goes the same, for politics and a lot of other industries and topics, but that if we don't let our opinions known and share our voices, nothing is going to happen and nothing is going to change.
Yeah. I love that. And sometimes it just starts with the tough conversations, right? Just standing up for yourself and the tough conversations.
Even just this morning, I had posted the event on our local Facebook group that has men and women in it. And this morning, even though it was after the event, some dude I've never heard of, by the way, said, "Oh, this is great. When is the men's real estate group starting?" And you know me well enough to know that I can't keep my mouth shut. So of course I replied and said, "This is precisely why we have women's groups, even though this was meant as a joke. Like, this is a prime example of of the crap that we deal with every day."
Yes.
Thank you for proving my point.
Yeah. And the answer should be, I don't know. When are you going to learn how to prepare a charcuterie board?
It's true. It's true.
I love it. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining me on the Real Estate Woman podcast. And you are a true woman in real estate, leading by example and driving our industry forward. It is truly an honor to have you as a guest. And we look forward to continuing to watch you and your success.
Thanks. I'm stoked to be here, and I'm ready for all of your Ottawa real estate referrals.
Sure thing. Thank you for joining us today. Make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Real Estate Woman podcast.